Monday, June 1st, coming at you from a beautiful spring evening in Middle Island, New York. My name is Christopher Colantuono, and this is the Geowizdom Podcast. Please hit the like and subscribe and keep this channel going. Now, there is something in particular I wanted to talk about this week. Last week, I discussed Pope Leo XIV's inaugural encyclical Magnificat Humanitas, which attacked the issue of artificial intelligence. And the core of the issue was that Pope Leo states that it needs to serve humanity at large, not a particular government or a particular group of people. And the one thing that he didn't talk about is something that I want to address tonight. So Pope Leo XIII, the namesake of our current Pope, wrote an enormous amount of encyclicals. And I'm going to talk tonight about Immortale Dei. And I want to start off by just reading a little piece of this 1885 encyclical. And it was really to address the separation of church and state, what was happening, the misconstruing of what really was going on, of separating the Catholic Church, the church instituted by Christ from earthly authority, and really how poisonous it's been. And Pope Leo XIV doesn't address this in Magnificat Humanitas, so I want to address this tonight. Now, this is a fairly long encyclical, not the longest, not the shortest, but I'm just going to read chapter 32 in its full to start. So too, the liberty of thinking and of publishing, whatsoever each one likes, without any hindrance, is not in itself an advantage over which society can wisely rejoice. On the contrary, it is the fountainhead and origin of many evils. Liberty is a power perfecting man, and hence should have truth and goodness for its object. But the character of goodness and truth cannot be changed at option. These remain ever one and the same, and are no less unchangeable than nature itself. If the mind assents to false opinions, and the will chooses and follows after what is wrong, neither can attain its native fullness, but both must fall from their native dignity into an abyss of corruption. Whatever, therefore, is opposed to virtue and truth may not rightly be brought temptingly before the eye of man, much less sanctioned by the favor and protection of the law. A well-spent life is the only way to heaven, whither all are bound, and on this account the state is acting against the laws and dictates of nature whenever it permits the license of opinion and of action to lead minds astray from truth and souls away from the practice of virtue. To exclude the church founded by God himself from life, from laws, from the education of youth, from domestic society is a grave and fatal error. A state from which religion is banished can never be well regulated. And already, perhaps more than is desirable, is known of the nature and tendency of the so-called civil philosophy of life and morals. The Church of Christ is the true and sole teacher of virtue and guardian of morals. She it is who preserves in their purity the principles from which duties flow, and by setting forth most urgent reasons for virtuous life, bids us not only to turn away from wicked deeds, but even to curb all movements of the mind that are opposed to reason, even though they be not carried out in action. Now, that's a lot to unpack there. But what Pope Leo XIII is discussing there can easily be ascribed to the discussion about artificial intelligence. And Pope Leo, he touches on good and evil. He touches on virtue. He specifically touches on education. And that's the area where I think artificial intelligence is the most important right now. It's educating people in new ways to live. People are going to it for advice on what to do about a job situation, what to do about a relationship situation. And let's be fair, Grok was not put together by a Catholic for Catholics by Catholic means with the virtues in mind. It was put together by moneyed interests for moneyed interests. And Grok arguably might be one of the more benign of the artificial intelligences. Now, I haven't looked at Magisterium, which I've been told is an artificial intelligence. It's supposed to be from Catholic or Christian means. Okay, well and good. Don't know too much about it, but here's what really needs to be just spelled out here. And that's something that is unequivocal. When something as powerful as artificial intelligence, funded, however you look at it, by state-run utilities, funded at large by the populace, with no regulation whatsoever from the Catholic Church, it is inevitably going to take us down a ruinous path. And you may say, oh, Chris, why is it inevitable? It's because nothing remains in stasis. There is no such thing as a vacuum in nature, not for any amount of time. And everything does tend towards itself, either to be living or dying. So right now, for sure, artificial intelligence is growing. And as it's growing, whether it be exponentially or linearly, however you might think it's growing, that doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's growing and that all kinds of license are its main aim. So whether you're using it to try to figure out how to get out of your marriage, whether you're using it to create some sort of pornographic image, whether you're using it to mimic a beautiful art form and do something that promotes the indwelling of the Holy Spirit in society. These are all good things. That's a good thing. Those last two. But without church guidance, it will inherently, without the guidance of good and holy priests, it will inherently tend towards itself. And it was created by corrupt men for corrupt reasons. And that's an unfortunate truth. We can look at it however we want. But I think one thing that's happened in the last few years is that people, particularly young people, understand now that evil is not inevitable. Evil is a choice. And we have seen how the brainwashing in Hollywood has led to the, let's just call it, ineptitude of Catholics throughout the world to effectively respond to the horrors in Gaza, the horrors in Lebanon, even the horrors going on in Ukraine. Again, Christians killing Christians, not Catholics, but still Christians killing Christians, although Ukraine's president is not Christian. And why are we ineffective? We're ineffective because we've allowed ourselves to be sidelined. Why have we allowed ourselves to be sidelined? We have let other people inform us of what's true and what's false. And artificial intelligence is just another way of that happening if we let it. If we let it be a hammer or if we let it be a key, then I say all well and good. But if we're trying to use it as a scalpel or if we're trying to use it as clay to mold a better society, that's not going to happen. It's a good tool, but it's an algorithm, and the algorithms were put forth by men who don't have Catholic interests at heart, don't have your interest at heart, don't have my interest at heart, and maybe don't even have their interest at heart. You think of some of the people in the world right now. And whether it's Peter Thiel from Palantir, definitely not living a Catholic life. Whether you think of really any of the captains of this industry right now, Elon Musk admittedly not leading what you would call the most exemplary of lives, although looks like he's trying. Whether that's true or not could all be a show, but it looks like it, and I'll take that for right now. But again, he's not going about telling you that he's a paragon of virtue, and it's a mistake to think that anything that exists outside of virtue in the realms of intellectualism, the intellectual life, can lead you to a virtuous life. You cannot use ineffective means to get an effective end. And again, if you're just trying to make money, if you're just trying to maintain something temporal in this world, then I'm sure it could suit you fine. But if what you're trying to do with your life is make a difference, and God does have a plan for your life, that's 100% true for every single person that's ever existed. Jesus Christ, he came and died, and God has a plan for your life. So Jesus rose again so we could have life and we could have it more abundantly. What we choose to do with it, that's up to us. What you choose to do with it, that's up to you. But if what you're doing is virtuous, then you're acting of your own free will. If what you're doing or pursuing is sinful, then you're really just being a slave to that sin. And that's something that I'm going to repeat over and over again, because it's something that our time inherently rejects. Our time inherently rejects objective truth, because when there's objective truth, there's objective lies. When there's objective good, there's objective evil. And when there's objectively good actions, there's objectively bad actions. And that means in any given situation, there can be an objectively good actor and an objectively bad actor. And if in a given situation, someone's really damaging society by being an objectively bad actor, then it's really up to them. It's really up to the society to hold them accountable. So it takes a long way to get there, but that's the problem with artificial intelligence. It does not hold itself accountable in any way, shape, or form to Christ. Therefore, it has its own rules, and it will inherently lead to all of the worst forms of vice. So, moving on. The other issue that's to bring to bear in Immortale Dei is where, Pope Leo XIII, just again and again, he brings up the whole concept of separation of church and state being really a falsehood, because there is no good outside the moral law. And if you don't have a good society, you don't really have a society. You have something that's going to turn in on itself very soon. And we like to think in America that because we're a republic or a democracy, that makes us inherently just, and that's just not true. We're as inherently just as the judgments, pronouncements, and actions of the people that live here. So you can live in a democracy, a democratic republic, where horrific actions are the norm, and you could live in a monarchy, an absolute monarchy, where virtue is the norm. So Pope Leo lays out that he does not specifically say there is a better form of government. He also doesn't say that the church should hold the role of government, but he does say, and just to go back to the gospel, where Jesus Christ states to render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to render unto God the things that are God's, that it is of incredible importance to have a useful society, to have something that we can build on, to get back to that. Because it's definitely that feeling that we need to get back to a society that can be built up. We have to understand the role of the church and government. And the role of the church and government is as a moral arbiter, particularly in a democracy. In a democracy, as Pope Leo states, it is this encyclical. In a democracy, rather than governing, the folks that we elect are more involved in the business of governing. So they're not necessarily taking a paternalistic view of the people where they want to look out for them as much as they're managing the economy, managing whatever's going on. And that definitely leads to the situation we have now where people are just, obviously it's an extraction job if you're involved in Congress in any way, shape, or form, just trying to extract as much income as possible, given the time that you have in. And that's not going to work henceforth. It's not going to work going forward because people will reject it. And young people particularly will clamor for revolution. And I see it coming down the pipeline. But neither here nor there, the always revolutionary to man action it's always revolutionary to proclaim Christ. And it's always contrary to the state of the world to proclaim his suffering on the cross and his resurrection. Why? Because whether we're a monarchy or whether we're a democratically elected republic, whether we're a parliamentary system, or whether we're a bunch of clans that come together, all of these temporal systems, all these worldly systems, though important, they all reject the concept of sacrifice as Christ presents it because they can't understand it because, again, can't understand the Trinity, the most profitable and maybe most dangerous thing to study. But because of that, not only is it important, it's equally vital. So they're called the twin pillars of a civilization for a reason. The civil government and the religious government. And right now we have a civil government which has completely stolen and overtaken the religious governance. And the reason is because we have become completely awashed in modernity, specifically rationality and relativism, where saying, every religion is right, every religion is true. So if that's true, then nothing would be true. But throughout history, Christ did institute one church. There is one faith where prophecies have been fulfilled. It's been documented. And that is an objective truth to all Catholics. And without this objectivity, we always devolve into relativism. And when we devolve into relativism, we look for absolutes like ChatGPT or Grok to give us a system to understand the world. So we have a system to understand the world. It's called the Apostles' Creed. It's called the Nicene Creed. It's there. Underpinning that, we have the papal bills, the encyclicals. We have the Gospels, of course. So we have a framework to understand the world. But when we reject it, we're always looking for something else. So my advice to everybody is to don't reject what's right in front of your face. And as God said, take my yoke upon you. Take my burden upon you. My yoke is gentle, my burden light. And specifically in these crazy times, that's 1,000,000% true. And that's all I have to say about that. My name is Christopher Colantuono. This is the Geowizdom Podcast. Have a fantastic evening.